there's something dark in the swamp. But mostly at nighttime. But yeah, you can get some pretty shady areas during the daytime too. There's a lot of trees and stuff. So, Dark at the Edge of Town is the fourth episode of Swamp Thing. And pretty much continuing in form with the third one, which I thought was a step better than what I'd seen in the first two. And but it needs to improve a lot more. But it's not going to, because they gave it the axe. So but Swamp Thing is presented more or less as a sort of dark soap opera in the swamp, and it's more about that, and it's more about the adventures of Abby Arcane than anything else. Swamp Thing himself just appears here and there and gives her guidance because he's in communion with the swamp. And so each time there's some sort of dark, sinister force that strikes out at the people. And this time it's a couple of guys. They were going to chop some trees down, and then this old corpse falls down on top of them, and one of them gets infected by some sinister something or other, and is plagued with hallucinations and ends up killing himself in a very horrific manner. And then passes it on, pretty much like what was that Star Trek episode, The Naked Time, where you keep passing on the disease. And first, the guy who's the father of the reporter, who's Abby's pal and all that, and then he goes crazy, and then the sheriff goes crazy because she gets scratched, and so on and on. And then Abby herself gets it, but Abby manages to retain her sanity long enough to make it to the swamp, because she knows she has to return it to the swamp where it belongs. So she gets there rather quickly, so but anyway, sometimes there's things that it comes across as cheesy and doesn't add up with the atmosphere of the show, but it still has it where these people are living every day in a horror movie, and it's some sort of force that possesses the swamp, and so on and so forth. My guess is that there's two sides of this there's the light and the dark of the swamp, and Swamp Thing represents that, and I think ultimately Floronic Man will represent the dark part that's wants to lash out after humanity, where Swamp Thing would be a little more reserved when confronting injustice and all that sort of thing. So I guess. Yeah, I don't really know, and I don't know if there's enough there to tell you that, but there's plenty of people who've done terrible things. I don't know that there was some scenes here where they suggest that I'm forgetting the reporter's name, but her mother was murdered by some masked creeps who broke into the restaurant that her father ran, and so maybe that'll come out, and one of them's Avery Sutherland, I don't know, or Avery's father. There's a flashback for Avery, young Avery, and his father trying to teach him to be a man, and stab this alligator between the eyes, boy, and stuff like that. So, oh, poor Avery, his dad made him a monster, whatever. Meanwhile, in order to please his wife, he's pretty much adopted the little girl who has a psychic connection to Swamp Thing. Even though she's not sick anymore, thanks to Abby, not magically, with a little help from Swamp Thing, she figured out how to save everyone from the green plague. And I can't remember, did her doctor friend die? Because he had it, no, he was the one she figured it out on, but I didn't see him in this episode. But anyway, I guess everyone survived and recovered from the sickness, and so they can move on to something else. The sickness was the first attack, and then you had the creepy, nasty thug who gets reanimated, and so going further and further. So ultimately, I think the swamp's going to want Avery's head, and they'll probably use Floronic Man to do it or what have you. But Floronic Man discovers because Abby asked Swamp Thing. I know she's calling him Alec, but I'm pretty sure he's not really Alec. He just thinks he is, and Alex is dead. But she gets a sample so she can study it, but she doesn't really know what she's looking at. And then Woodrow, he looks at it and says, "Holy crap, what's this?" And so now this will lead him to what I think will transform him into Floronic Man. The other interesting part is by which they expand on the DC universe and their magic characters, where Ian, or Ian, who's playing Cassidy, the soon-to-be, well, maybe, I don't know, Blue Devil, and he's been following with what Madame Xanadu is telling him that his purpose in life is some sort of challenge that he has to face, and he's become convinced that he's supposed to help out Abby. Boy, there's something about Abby, you know, but at one point the sheriff almost kills Abby when she's, you know, being haunted by the illusions and hallucinations that the dark force that infected her makes her see, and then he rushes in and saves her. So he's probably thinking, there you go, that's what I was supposed to do. I saved Abby. And then, no, you're doomed to become the Blue Devil. And I'm hoping we'll get to see that before it wraps up, but yeah, maybe we won't. And there's still some good things about what they spent the money on, which is the special effects and that sort of thing, and how Swamp Thing works. But other times, I don't know, it's like his red eyes just don't quite fit. I guess they're trying to make them look, you know, more supernatural and otherworldly, you know, rather than just, you know, his eyes are red. But it really just stands out too much. With the rest of it, it's kind of this darkness and desaturated look to it all. So I don't know, but anyway, the different hallucinations that people had, the characters that survived anyway, probably lead to other story that we may or may not get to, especially with Abby having to see this dark, mysterious man who taunted her, and I'm assuming we're going to find out it's her father or someone like that, and that'll come up later. But yeah, so there you go. You know, better than the first two, of course, but pretty much on par with the third one, and not much than that, and obviously a show that's telling a long story in this sort of the soap opera of the swamp, with all their dark secrets, and it's all very dark. But enough to save it or anything like that? No, not really. I mean, apparently there's a fan base for it, but I think they've made their decision. And I think it's not just Swamp Thing, it's the whole shebang. And there have been some stories, and some images released for the casting of Superboy for the Titans Season 2. But I'm still wondering, is that still going to continue with the DC Universe streaming service, or will this be a series they'll fold into the new Warner Brothers or Warner Media streaming service that they'll try to use to go up against the titans of Amazon and Netflix, and eventually D+, where they'll probably lose. But what are you going to do? So there you go. Swamp Thing. Darkness at the edge of town. Yeah. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. Say, why not like and subscribe? And, well, while you're here, you might as well look down at that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores that have plenty of goodies for you. Yes, that's right.